Welcome to Unspoken, community and business conversations powered by Touch Cleveland. Following last year's racial uprisings, we saw a plethora of Black stories resurface, and it brought to the forefront the importance of knowing our history or being bound to repeat it. Traditionally, Blacks kept history by gathering around their elders and listening to their stories, but today's generation seems to have lost that value. Rose's Living Legends sat down with Cleveland's prominent movers and shakers aged 70 and up to capture their wisdom, experiences, and more importantly, to give them their roses while they're here. In truth and in light, this is Unspoken.
Today we have with us CEO Mockabee of the Urban League of Greater Cleveland. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure to be here.
So we will hop right into it. Tell the people, who are you and how long have you been in Cleveland?
So I'm Marsha Mockabee, as you already said, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Cleveland. I've been in Cleveland all my life, born and raised here, graduated from Cleveland schools, and stayed here locally, started my career. All my career moves were here. Got married, raised a family, raised my children, and now my grandchildren. So I'm a Cleveland girl with a Cleveland story.
So I have to ask, which high school?
Collinwood High School.
Hey, okay,
That's all right. Yeah, I was a railroader, but I was there with Stephanie Tubbs-Jones, the late Stephanie Tubbs-Jones. She was a great mentor. She was half a year ahead of me and was a great mentor, and we became great friends, and I miss her dearly. But so we had a great time in high school. Yeah.
So what would you say you are best known for, or what has been your most significant contribution?
So let me just say that I've been with the Urban League for 30 years and in the CEO seat for 11. And I would say that the greatest contribution has been to education and youth development work in my early years, but in the last 11 years it's been as a turnaround specialist, taking on a failing organization, failing financially, so let me be clear. And at that point, it was 95 years that this organization had stood, and because I'd been such a part of it, I could not let it fall like that. So took on all the challenges of an under-resourced organization, one who had really experienced some brand damage that had to be polished up and renewed, and reputational risk. And so myself and my transition board, who I was very blessed to have, we went to work, and against all of the naysayers and those that didn't think it could be done, because I'm a very strong woman of faith, and I knew it could be because of who had promised me that it would be, we went on and got the work done. So I would say I'm proudest of being known as a turnaround strategist, but I'm mostly proud that I was able to stand in faith and see things turned around as it was promised to me, in a way that it would be clear that nobody did it but the Lord. So I'm good with that.
What is one of the most significant moments in history that you've witnessed?
I have to say the election of President Barack Obama. To see a Black man rise to the highest office in this land was just pretty amazing. And then to see him elected a second time against all odds was pretty amazing. And not only to be elected, but for him and his family to stand so gracefully and to really execute the office with such dignity and poise was just something to behold.
So what would you say about Cleveland? What's the most significant moment in history you've witnessed here?
Let's see. Wow. I think one of the things that really sort of stands out to me was some of the major developments that have happened, like the flats. The development of the flats during the time I was a young person, that idea just wasn't anywhere on the platform. So to see the development of the flats, to see the development of all of the neighborhoods that are kind of coming online and growing, I think those are some things. And to begin to see the breakdown of the divide of across the river. Growing up, it was, we always stayed on this side of the river, very segregated, and now we know that we have people living everywhere on both sides of the river, so that's real different.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was not exposed to that until I was about 23 in my first corporate job, and okay. I find it still being perpetuated too often. What do you think the recipe is for that? What do you think has helped sort of start to close that gap, and how do we continue to close that gap?
I think that one of the things that helped to close the gap is the attention that was brought to redlining and the absolute advocacy and policy changes against redlining, because that's what really created separate and segregated neighborhoods, was the whole redlining. As people moved into the middle class and were able to buy homes, I was an example of this. My real estate agent only showed me homes in Cleveland Heights that were on the borderline of East Cleveland, so that my children would go to East Cleveland schools. Now, not being a first-time home buyer and young and all of that, I didn't know that if you lived in Cleveland Heights, I assumed they went to Cleveland Heights schools. That was not the case. So I think the redlining issue has made a big difference. Wealth generation, individuals being able to generate wealth and have more income to purchase homes in different places. I think those things have made a difference in the breakdown and the fact that people are now living, more places that they really want to live. And I think what is going to continue that to happen is just us being watchful and diligent and not allowing things like redlining to come back. We have to keep advocating. We have to keep really taking a hard stand about not allowing our neighborhoods to become segregated, and really fighting for equity and social justice and those kinds of things.
Is there something about life or society that you thought would be different by now, or is there something that maybe is farther along than you ever imagined it would be?
So certainly, I was not ready for the kinds of things that are occurring today with respect to racial injustice. I never thought we would be going backward at this stage of the game, but clearly we are. And, that's very disappointing, especially to all that many of our forefathers and many of our civil rights heroes actually gave their lives and all of their work for. What's further along are things I'm not really proud of or happy about. The youth-on-youth violence that we're experiencing, and even just not only youth-on-youth violence, but just violence in general in our society, the sort of breakdown in the fiber of caring about the dignity of human life. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. So those are things that are further along, but I'm certainly not proud of them, not happy about them, and have on my agenda working every day to try to stem the tide of those things.
So you spoke of some of the racial racism and social injustices actually going backwards. What is it that the youth, because from my perspective, it seems like, our generation is so much bolder and so much more vocal and so much more, willing to get into the fight. And so what is it that the youth should be doing to, what's the question I'm looking for? How do we turn this around? Because it's surprising me as well that has been a reply from several of our interviews that it seems like we're going backwards when it comes to social injustices. What can the youth do today to start pushing things forward again?
It's a multi-generational move, an intergenerational move. We have to balance both the passion and impatience of our younger generation to get it done, and the wisdom and experience of our older generation to avoid the pitfalls that are surely still there. So clearly, I think, and as I see even in my staff, some of the impatience of my younger team members, it's really, helping them to understand that the race isn't given to the swift or to the strong, but those that endure till the end will get there. We don't have to win it today. It's okay if we lose a skirmish, but we need to stay in the battle, and that with the right strategies, the battle can still be won. So I think that and I think that certainly, and I have to work on myself and my colleagues and contemporaries with this, is we also have to have the patience for the impatience and the get it done now attitude of our younger folks, because we were there also at one time. So I think creating an intergenerational model of social action is very important, because if we go at it together, I think we have much more of a chance of winning.
I like that, an intergenerational model, because I hear a lot of frustration amongst both sides, actually, that there's not enough passing of the baton.
Exactly.
Do you feel like that's part of the reason why we've maybe started to go backwards?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. And I think, and I don't even think it's so much passing the baton, it's actually sharing the baton or creating multiple batons so we can all march in the parade at the same time. I think the old sort of way was you had to pass the baton. There was a baton, the baton. You passed it. There can be more players, and we all can carry different batons and play different roles to get the job done. So I see that. And I mean, for instance, these mayoral races that are going on now, I'll tell you, at the time when I was in your generation, this would not have happened. There wouldn't be this many people running, because there was a council of advisors in our community that would have sat these folks down and said, we're going to come up with these one or two that we're going to support. We're not going to have you running against each other. We're not doing that. Wow. That's how it was done. Yeah, that's how it used to be done.
So I would love to ask you, who you're going, but I won't go there on you. Yeah. But so one question I do have in regards to this big election we have coming up, there's been, things like the Two Tomorrows report from the fund, and then the Clee Rising Summit, and some other initiatives that the name escapes me now. But all of these initiatives that have sought to identify what the main issue of Cleveland is and what we should focus on first and what needs to get done first. In your opinion and expertise, what would you say that is the number one issue that Cleveland needs to focus on right now?
Racism as a public health crisis. That's why I co-chair, along with Margaret Mitchell, I co-chair the work at the City of Cleveland for racism as a public health crisis. Because that work focuses on all of the social determinants of health. And so it touches workforce, wealth generation, criminal justice, health, education. I mean, it touches every system, if you will, that really impacts the lives of Clevelanders. And so once we can begin to dismantle the systemic racism that really cuts across those systems, and what I mean by that is really addressing policies and practices at the top of those systems, then I think we can begin to see some things that can change.
So I can tell just from your overall aura that you're strong and brilliant. Is there anything that you wish you would have done?
Let's see. I had a 17-year corporate career prior to coming into not-for-profit. And I started to say I wish I would have come to not-for-profit sooner, but I don't think that's actually accurate now that I think about it, because with that 17-year experience, I'm a different kind of nonprofit leader. I come with a bottom line kind of mindset. I don't believe that not-for-profit is not for profit. I believe that it is to be in line with the tax code and to obey that and all of that. But what would I do differently? The only thing I would have done differently is I would have started my family later. And I probably would have gone to an HBCU, and I'd have been an Angela Davis type. That's who I would have been. I would have been an Angela Davis type. Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah. So that's probably the only regret. Certainly, the man that I married was wonderful. We, had 50 years together and have a beautiful family. We have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. And so, that's all good. I wouldn't have wanted any of that change. I just think I would have waited to start I started my family very young, and so put my education on hold. So I would have done it in reverse. I would have wanted to go ahead and get my education first, start my family a little bit later. And like I said, I think that I would have been probably a bit more of an activist earlier if I had gone to an HBCU.
If you could leave the whole world with any final words or advice or just your message or nugget of wisdom, what would you want to leave with everybody with?
Boy. I think the first thing I would say is that if you are a person of faith, you need to take that in every room you go to and on every stage you stand on. I don't care how big, I don't care how many. Never shrink your faith out of fear that people won't accept you, because I believe that your gifts make room for you. I would also say family is everything. While career is important, make sure that there's a work-life balance to having your family know that they're as important to you as your work is. That's very, very important.
Oh, you about to get me a little emotional. Well, Miss CEO Mockabee, yes. I thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute wonderful interview, and just getting this wisdom out of you. I thank you so much for your time. And again, this whole purpose of these interviews is to pay homage to the people that we feel like have paved the way. And more importantly, we literally want to give you your roses while you're here. Oh. And when I say literally,
oh, stop it! Oh my!
Kofi, I'm hooked up. Oh, we'd like to give you your roses while you are here.
Thank you, Kofi. Oh, how amazing! Thank you so very much. I'm humbled and honored. Thank you.